Welcome to my bewitching podcast, where I take you on a journey to initiate you into the mysteries and pleasures of all things magical and more. I'm Julie Nelson, Rich Witch, botanical perfumer, astrologer, and creator of the Fragrant Oracle. I'll discuss a myriad of topics passionately on women rising unapologetically, witchcraft, including spells, rituals, insightful astrology updates, and oracle card readings. I'll also introduce you to special guests who share their bountiful knowledge and experience in the art of witchcraft, the intuitive and healing arts, and being wildly unapologetic.
My goodness.
And here we are one more time for another very interesting Rich Witch podcast with a beautiful woman that I haven't known for too long, but she is a fellow astrologer and likes to do magic and different things. And Patricia Selmo, I'm going to hand over the microphone to you for a moment to give yourself a bit of an introduction, perhaps where you are and what your favorite thing about astrology is, and then we can get stuck into talking about, I know what part of astrology isn't good. That's what I just thought then. Oh, absolutely. So let's get you introduced, and then we're going to dance with some astrological magic. So over to you, my dear.
Yeah, so thank you, Julie. I am Patricia Selmo. I am originally from the United States, Texas to be exact, and I have been living in Portugal for a little over a year. I think I'm almost going on a year and a half now, which is just crazy to think about, but here I am. I moved over here with my family, my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandson, and yeah. So that makes it nice. I already had ready-made family here. I knew some people here, so I had some friends. So that always made it, that makes the transition easier.
Yeah.
And what's my favorite thing about astrology? Oh, I think I just love how it works. Like, when I have a client in front of me and, we talk about something that's coming up and then there it is, or I talk about something that might have happened and they're like, yes, it did. And
That's magic, isn't it? I love it when that happens and they get all those aha moments, and it's like,
aha
yes.
moments are the best. And from the client perspective, I think just watching them feel so validated. Because often people know what's going on. They have that intuitive hit, but they don't trust it. And when you speak it because of something that's sitting there in black and white, and you say this thing, and they're like, oh, I knew that. And then they just
I love it.
you can see the relief wash over them. And it's like, oh, that's magic too. Yeah.
It is. And, one of the other things that I love so much about astrology for me, understanding astrology, and of course we all, I'm sure you do, but I can't speak for you, but I've got a hankering because the other astrologers I know, we have a tendency to want to know other people's charts, because when you meet them, you go, oh, I can see a bit of Sagittarius in there, or the strong fire or water. And so you're very curious as to what's going on in their chart. I love that. And
absolutely.
It's fun, isn't it?
It's fun. And what I was going to say too, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes just even within a conversation, if they're telling a story about something, almost like above their head, I'm seeing the astrological symbols of what's happening in that story.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
again, I want
Yeah.
to see like what's transiting, what's happening there. What did that look like in a chart?
Absolutely, absolutely. What is going on? Oh, let's have a look at your transits, because I'm the one that's more curious. And something that I find very powerful and empowering is, for me personally, it takes away judgment. Because when we understand where they're coming from due to their cosmic blueprint or their astrology birth chart, when we understand all of what's going on in the cosmos and what any person's chart is saying, it's like, I understand why you're behaving or reacting like that. So we can step back and process and perhaps either not take offense or, I just love that, because for me, it takes away some judgment or the judgment, because I know where they're coming from. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, just for a bit of fun, Patricia's got this gorgeous, sexy red lipstick on, and her fingernails are painted red, and she just looks gorgeous. So I just thought I'd share that.
Oh,
Set
it's
up for
season.
the magic.
Have to get festive. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Get into it. So where shall we start? Because we haven't structured this call. I love just chatting, and sometimes I find when we start, it can lead down so many paths, and I take notes. But I do love to work with Planetary Magick, and for anybody that doesn't really understand it, it's if you're working spells or want to do ceremony or ritual, you can tap right down into the minute depending on the planets. And I love doing that because it potenizes my magic. Now, it's not to say that every time you do magic that's what you should do, because it takes planning, and it might be in the middle of the day when you're at work, or if you don't work at home, you can't just stop and have your ritual and spell crafting all set up ready to go for that moment in time. So let's dance a little bit with that, and perhaps we could talk about keywords that we could tap into for archetypal energies with the planets and even the stars for working with magic. So maybe should we start at the beginning of the zodiac and see where it takes us? And feel free to elaborate or go off path, because I am well known, and if we have so much to say, that's okay. We'll just keep going.
Okay. All right. So we're doing like a little riff on the signs of the zodiac. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Oh, I
and
love
then and perhaps, like, say for example, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and
Mhm.
Aries is a fire element. It's ruled by Mars. It rules the first house, which is the house of the self. It's very fiery, motivating, passionate. So perhaps where could we bring in that Mars and Aries energy? Or let's, whatever. We'll do it like that, I think. And talk about, well, for me, and feel free to say anything you want, Patricia, but if I wanted to do some spell work for myself in motivating myself, finding my passion, I'm just throwing ideas out here. It could be about, taking action. There might be something that I need to take action with. Then I can either work with the moon in Aries, or I could work and look at where Aries and Mars are at any given time and where they're moving over my chart, or where they are globally. But I would probably, let's say for ease, keeping it simple, I wanted to fire myself up, like I needed a beast of energy and, get my passion happening. Well, I'm totally going to go off track here, because if it was in the eighth house, it would be like sex, sex, sex. But sorry, this is what I do. My mind goes anywhere. So it could be that I want to look at where Aries is in my chart, and then look at where Mars is transiting around the chart, And then I would plan it to perhaps be going over my first house, or where Aries was sitting or is sitting in my chart. So there's two ways you could look at it for that, isn't it? Wherever Aries is sitting, whatever house, then the magic would be around the theme of that house. But if we wanted to work with ourselves, where the planet Mars is going through the first house, I'm trying not to complicate it.
I'll add a whole different perspective if you like.
Yes, please.
So I'm a traditional astrologer. So
Mm.
I base a lot of my techniques on the old ways. So
Mm.
one of those things is I only work with the visible planets when I'm doing magic. In reading a chart, I look at the outers, but to keep it simple. So I look at and I look at the planet. So kind of like what you were saying, doing planetary magic. So what's the planet, like, what do I want? What am I looking for? And what would be the planet that represents that of the 7 visible ones? And then from there, I pull up an electional chart based on the planet. And so putting the planet in a good place in the chart, wherever that is. So I don't really bring mine into it necessarily. Right? I just look at it from the perspective of that planet and placing it somehow for optimal. And this is based on old techniques as well, like horror technique. Right.
Yep.
And so then that's the moment of the ritual. And then I can create around that. What are the colors of the planet? What are the elements? What are the, food, all these,
music, you can relate music,
what you say. Yeah, all of that.
Absolutely. So it's embodying, evoking, or even invoking.
Invoking the planet.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that I'm just agreeing with you.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's like, and with evoking, we are tapping into those qualities. With invoking, we are fully embodying them. So I think it's very important for people to understand the difference and perhaps start off with evoking them. So getting familiar with those qualities. And when they feel more confident and that they can hold the energy is when they can fully embody it. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I might be going off on a tangent here, but the other thing you can do is to make a talisman during that time that you can then carry with and keep that energy close as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I love working with sigils. So if we were going to work, so for example, I'll just give an example of what I might do, and then you can share. And we will do the planets. It makes more sense than the signs. We don't need to go around the wheel, but as such. So for me, if I was working with Mars, and I immediately think of Aries energy anyway, but I want to bring in the fire. So I love to work with candle magic, with fire magic. And if I say, for example, if I wanted to bring in something that, let's say that I needed to, I was speaking to a psychosexologist today because I'm interviewing her on the podcast. So I've got sex on the brain. So we're just going to go with it, okay?
Love it.
That's there.
Sex on wherever.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be, I don't know, like, my Scorpio's coming out here as well. So it might be that I want to feel more sexy. I want to be more attractive and attract what I desire. And it could be sexually related. It could be a job, whatever it is that you're wanting. And so I would probably, for me, I love creating sigils and carving them on a candle. So that is like a symbol where we create a symbol out of words. So we can put words together in a sentence. This is for our audience, and then break it down and create a beautiful symbol that is very symbolic to us that we can also carry around with us. You could carve it on a little piece of wood or paint it, however you want to do it. I love sigils. I've actually got one that's been sitting up on my fridge for about a year now, and it's still like it is me, so I love it. And yeah, and immediately I would go to a red candle for that, because red is base chakra, it's sexy, it's passion, it's fire, it's Aries. So yeah, we could do some candle magic to conjure in what we desire. What about you? Have you got an example? I mean, you've got that red lipstick on. Hey.
I know. I was thinking that how appropriate. Here we are talking about Mars, and I've got my red lips on. So
Oh,
love those synchronicities, right?
absolutely.
No, same. And often what I'll do, I'm a bit of a minimalist in a way, as far as, I don't have a lot of witchy things necessarily. I keep it kind of mostly because I moved to Portugal and I had to get rid of so many things, to make such a big move. And so I'm kind of rebuilding a little. Now when I do my magic, sometimes it's literally, something in the four quarters, like a candle, a little bowl of water, or a seashell, a little, just something very simple. And so when I'm doing planetary magic, maybe I'll have like you said, a red candle for if I'm working with Mars, or whatever the color of that planet is, and keep it really simple. And then if I'm making a talisman, I mean, honestly, sometimes the easiest is a piece of paper and a pen. And you can hold it and I can keep it in your pocket, and like you said, creating a sigil. And if I'm feeling ultra simple, I will just put the glyph of the planet. So for Mars, I would put the symbol for Mars on there and keep that with me, knowing that it's been infused in the energy of the ritual I've just done, right? Yep. And so it's got that energy with it, and then keep that with me.
Because we have magic. So let's just talk about that for a minute, because I've got strong Venus and Scorpio, and I love my Lilith, and so I've got about 5 altars in my home, and I've got my Athaman, my wand, and candles and feathers. However, in saying that, I didn't have that for a few years because everything was in storage. So I'm really enjoying it right now. And I live on my own, so I don't have to worry about it. So we can be elaborate, and we can be as simple, as you said, like having the glyph, or writing a note on the paper and carrying it with us. And if it were for money, then it could be in your purse. If it's for protection, it could be in your pocket. So we are the magic, and I think that's very important to understand. The tools are I think, well, for me, it's just a bit of an elaboration, I love it, I get pleasure out of it. And for some, they believe that it can enhance the magic, and others, it helps them to keep their focus, direct their focus. So just keep that in mind. No way is wrong. It's what we have time for and what is available to us at any given time, really. Yeah. So I'm going to let you choose the next planet that we can have a dance with.
Okay. So I know maybe we should choose a lighter planet than Mars, but I'm not going to. I'm going to jump to Saturn.
Oh, yeah. No, let's do the heavy ones first.
Because, yes, mostly because I've had an experience with Saturn recently. So I have a story to tell.
Please do. Love stories.
Yeah. So I, in my work, my business, had noticed, over the summer and a little bit into the fall, that I had become very, what's the word I want to use? I mean, we could say lazy, but
unmotivated.
Unmotivated would be good. Yeah, unmotivated. I was watching, I was laying on the couch watching Netflix for the majority of the day rather than, what I need to be doing. And anyway, you get the picture. I'm sure we've all had those. I think also during a lot of that time, we had most of the sky in retrograde. So that probably was helping the situation. However, recently I thought to myself, okay, get a grip. You've got to get focused. You've got to, get some, rather than working a little on my computer and going, okay, after 15 minutes, you can go lay on the couch. Oh, after 15 minutes, go watch a Netflix. Oh, after this, like do this one little thing and then go, to where the most of the day was filled with the not doing things, right? And so I was like, I just need more focus. I need a little more like focus and, dedication. And so who can help me with that? And so Saturn popped in my head, kind of the disciplinarian of the zodiac, the planet that demands perseverance and patience and commitment and, those sorts of things.
On a mission. They're on a mission, that planet.
Yes. We've got to accomplish, right? And so I created a ritual. I chose to make it simple. I didn't even really necessarily elect a chart. What I did is I just picked Saturday because it's Saturn's day, right? And for the hour of Saturn in that day that worked for me, which, if people are interested, you can go to planetaryhours.org and put in your location and it'll tell you the hours and which planets. And so sometimes that's simple, just pick the hour that corresponds to. Go ahead.
It's simple, but it's really neat, like getting into it. So it is simple, but powerful because you're getting into the timing.
Absolutely. And so, so I dressed in black, Saturn's color. I had some black stones, I have a little onyx owl. You can see it over there on my altar. I had him, I had a black candle. I had and I found online a mantra to Saturn that I said 108 times, and I don't have a mala to count. So I took dried black beans and I counted out 108 of them.
Great idea.
I used them as my little, like counting mala to do the chant 108 times. And I've been doing this every Saturday for about 3 weeks now. And let me tell you, I was amazed, even myself. I was like, whoa, this works. I was about to say the SH word. I don't know if I can say it.
Oh, swear away. Fuck is my favorite word.
There you go. Ain't
no hiding the language here.
Okay. So, So since then I get up, I get on my computer, I get my marketing done. I've been getting on social media. I have been writing things. I've been on, you're like the 5th podcast in 2 weeks that I have been on. Like, and I'm not exhausted or unfocused. Like it's just amazing. I'm naturally tired at the end of the day, but it's this good accomplished feeling like, oh, I did something. And I'm going to keep doing it for a little while. And I think what I'm going to do probably in the next week or so is bring in Mercury, because Mercury is for, the merchant, right? It's the trade, it's the exchange of money, and, to kind of bring that aspect in as well.
Love it.
But let me tell you, and things that were maybe more distracting for me fell away naturally. The things I needed to commit to became clearer. The things I needed to, say no to, put boundaries, Saturn, right?
That's Saturn, Saturn and Capricorn, they're very, very good.
Yeah. So I think sometimes we get a little nervous around Saturn, but Saturn is so good for us,
It's it's really interesting because way before I studied astrology, so we'll be talking over 30 years ago, a good friend of mine is a great astrologist. She's not practiced, she was brilliant. And I've got Saturn and Sag on my midheaven, But I was always told by astrologers, well, not that I had that many, but a few, that it's going to be really challenging for you in business and da 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 da. It's always going to be hard. And I didn't understand then, and it really set me up in a negative way. But then when I started studying Saturn, I thought, oh, this is for me, I find Saturn a teacher. Saturn will bring things, up. And so therefore I get the opportunity to grow and learn and help me stay focused and, on my mission. So it's interesting. We have to be mindful what we say to people, because that really set a tone for me. And I remember feeling really disappointed. Thank God, this is going to be fucking hard. Should I be doing this? But I was given the wrong information. So thank goodness for my friend.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
It's all right. Happens. I do it.
It goes to show that there's two sides to every coin, to every, the Mars has a very positive aspect, giving us energy to take action and go after something. And too much of it can burn you, right?
Burn us out. Yeah.
Yeah. Hurt other people maybe in the process. So, and everything has that,
Absolutely. The light and the dark, the positive and the negative. And I think that for me too, it's about trusting ourselves. And I look at astrology, it's a magnificent tool. And what it does is give us choice.
Yes.
When we know, right. Yeah. And when we know the energies that are surrounding us, it doesn't mean everything is set in stone. What it means is we can go, oh, now might not be the right time for that. So I'm going to lie on the lounge and watch Netflix.
Exactly. I tell my clients, I love giving the beach analogy. So, it's kind of like, you could say to me, Patricia, I want to go to the beach on Saturday. And I look at the weather report and I go, well, it looks like there's 90% chance of rain. There's going to be some big black clouds out that day.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're not going to the beach? No, because you have free will. You can still go to the beach. But now you are informed. Now you know what? It might not be the most ultimate day at the beach, but maybe I can bring my tarp, to lay down. I can bring an umbrella. I can have a plan B. Like, now you have empowerment to make some decisions around going to the beach on Saturday.
What you're going to choose to do. Exactly. And this is like, with Mercury, when it's in retrograde, we say don't sign really big legal documents. And if you have to, then make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's. But it's like you have the choice.
And you have awareness now of what might possibly happen. The other example, I just want to talk about Mercury retrograde that I always tell people too. It's like, it's the redo, right? Like all those rewords, things might have to get redone. I mean, that's honestly maybe the worst thing. That it's not so terrible, but it's a pain in the ass, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna have to redo this because I don't know if you remember when Obama got sworn in as president. It was during Mercury retrograde, and astrologers were like, no, we can't have it at that time, blah, blah, blah. Well, they did it at that time. And there was something in the communication, again, Mercury, where, when he repeats after the guy or whatever, and they said the wrong thing or they skipped a line, there was something that was not quite right. And so they had to redo it.
Oh my gosh.
And all these astrologers were like, this is the perfect example of what happens when you do these. So I
vaguely remember that. So Mercury is the swift messenger, and rules over Gemini. So communication is very important. And you said the words, like I always say, because I always want to bust the myth about, how everybody goes, oh no, Mercury retrograde, oh no, this is it's like, just go within. It's like, if the tarot's upside down, it's about going within. If a planet retrograde, like reflect, realign, redo, recalibrate,
Yeah.
reaffirm, go into all of that.
It gives us an opportunity 3 times a year to stop moving forward for a bit and to, like you said, reflect, go within, go look at the stuff you've been working on and maybe reevaluate it, double check it. It's a great time for all of that.
And it's really good for us to do that. I think it's really important for us to have that time to slow down, take a breath, and reflect or redo or whatever it is, revitalize.
Yes. So Mercury retrograde is just a reminder to do that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
hey.
And if you don't, sorry, we're crossing over. But if you don't, it might kick you up the ass. And that's when you go, oh, Mercury retrograde. But really it was because we weren't
we didn't take that.
Yeah, we weren't giving that the attention it deserved.
Exactly. Yeah. And kind of, you were talking about Saturn. I just wanted to say what did you say it was did you say it was the parent, like a parent?
The teacher. I always think of it as the teacher.
And I was going to say, I often talk about it as a parent that's, the kind, loving parent that wants the best for you. And it will tell you, Julie, go clean your room, you don't do it. And then it's okay. Now it's not maybe so nice. And it's like, Julie, if you don't clean your room, you can't go to the party, And then if you still don't do it, it might be, okay, Julie, I'm done. I'm locking you in your room until you clean it, And so I often tell people, Saturn can be that cosmic 2x4 that hits you over the head, but it's gonna give you some warnings. Like, you need to do some of these things up.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't, you face the lessons, the consequences of what happens. And so that's okay, because sometimes I think, well, that's okay, because maybe that is a part of it that is necessary in our journey as well, as long as we don't keep ignoring things, because that's when we stop growing, we stop moving forward, we stop rising up, we're just out of alignment. And if you find yourself out of alignment and things keep coming up, then perhaps you could get your astrology chart looked at, and you might find, there's Saturn, or there's Mercury retrograde, or it could even be, I love Jupiter. Should we move into Jupiter next?
Yes, let's do it.
I love Jupiter. It's one of my favorite planets to work with in Magick, because for me, it's the planet of expansion, and awakening and optimism, and some call it the teacher.
Yeah, the guru called it, the revealer of truth.
Philosopher.
Yeah, he's in traditional astrology or benefic, blessing. And I like to call him the cosmic Santa Claus in this. I always think of him, as this jovial, which comes from the word Jupiter, jovial, jolly, giver of gifts, right? Like big personality. Yeah.
It's such a powerful, for me, I just like, even when I think about Jupiter, it's like coming to life, and it's big, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then Jupiter is the ruler of Sag, and Sag is fire, but I always think of Sag as like very jovial, forever young at heart, and playful and fun, optimistic. Yeah. And I always also relate Artemis, because, she's the huntress in the forest, the protector of the animals and the wildlife. And I always I have an essential oil that I associate to Sag, and that is bergamot. And because it's that, again, the same qualities as Sag, forever young at heart, spontaneous, bubbly, playful, going forward. And I always see these little pixies in the forest. And then there's Artemis, they're all running around Artemis. She's got her arrow, her bow and arrow. So it's like, she is the huntress. And it was really interesting because I see that as that forward movement.
Yeah.
The arrow, pointing your arrow in the direction and going there. So wherever that may be, for travel or traveling,
the adventurer, right?
Yeah, the adventurer.
Exactly.
I love it. So I do a lot of magic with Jupiter. Jupiter just lights me up. So again, it's fire.
I'm curious, do you is Jupiter an important?
Jupiter, actually not really, which is really interesting. So I always have to, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I always have to visualize what my chart, the wheel looks like. And I'd have to have a look now. It's not a strong placement, which is really interesting because I've got a lot of stuff in the 8th house. So then I know while we talk, I'm going to look at it now. I should know this because it's really funny, because there are certain things where I can tell you, yes, that's just there, but they might not necessarily be my favorite planets to work with yet, although like Venus, of course, and I do work with the asteroids and the outer planets. I'm getting really, really curious about. So now I know wow, talk about being called out, but we're going to do this now.
While you're looking, I just want to add from a traditional, because, we don't, for rulership 7. So Jupiter also rules Pisces traditionally.
Yes. Whereas I'm more, yeah.
Yeah. But it brings in that, first of all, the water element and that expansive quality of Pisces, right? The, the idea of transcending physical limitations, and we're all one, and spirituality, also very utilitarian.
Yeah, absolutely. And whereas I do the more modern because they make more sense to me, with Neptune in Pisces and Scorpio with Pluto. I love Scorpio and Pluto together. So it's really fascinating when we start look. So I've got Jupiter and Neptune in the 9th house, which I knew, and I could see it in my vision, but I thought I better check. So Jupiter's in its natural house. For anybody that doesn't know, it rules the 9th house. And so in Scorpio, Jupiter and Scorpio in the 9th, and it's conjunct Neptune. And it's a part of my grand water trine with my Caesar ascendant in Cancer moon.
Well, so in traditional astrology, Jupiter is very important in your chart because it rules it.
Yeah.
It's the lord of your chart. It's the lord of your life. It's the helmsman, as we would say in Hellenistic astrology. It's the helmsman of your life. It's the guiding. So,
and I'm so naturally, innately attracted to Jupiter.
That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, I love it. And Venus also, I love working because I've got 5, including asteroid and my North Node in Libra in the 8th house. So I've got 5 Venus. So I've got that Venusian energy. So coming back to Jupiter. So these are things where, like, great for money spells, or anything where you want to expand on in your life, which could be career, could be study, could be money, could be love, like any of them. They can work in any
abundance of anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind too,
not so great for weight loss.
I know, and it's funny that you bring that up because I always remember one of the first things is my friend said to me, Julie, you've got to be mindful of gaining weight. And I went, and it happened. It happened. But anyway, I've just realized you've got this beautiful sparkly silvery jumper on, and it's very moon-like. It's bloody
dressed for the occasion.
It's beautiful. I love it. Thank you. We'll do a video and you can sparkle yourself up.
Okay,
that.
perfect.
Yeah.
My star earrings too.
Oh, they're gorgeous. Yes. Oh, gorgeous. So with Jupiter too, what I should do is give you all an essential oil for each planet.
Oh,
And
dude.
yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
just tap back into Mars. So Mars would be basil,
Okay.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Or black pepper is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Then what did we do? We went into Mercury,
Mm-hmm.
and Mercury being communication, spearmint or peppermint. Also lemon because it's about clarity. So we want clear communication. Then we went on to Saturn. And Saturn, it's really funny. I really like Saturn, but I struggle with Capricorn energy. I only have one, so I'm not very good with structure. Capricorn is really good with structure. So it's really like, oh, it's so
Probably
hard.
why we complement each other so well, because I am very earth heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I'm water and air. Oh God. So that's why I go off track and go off with the pixies all the time. So but I'm very conscious of grounding every single day. I have to be conscious of grounding, and it's even how I've set up my home. Like naturally, I've got so much wood in my home, and I love to be in the forest. Like, I'd be happy to live in the forest with in a little cottage. Would be divine.
yes.
Yeah, just so beautiful. So, it's just my dream. I had it once actually.
Mm.
So we've got Saturn.
Yeah.
Yes. So when we talk about structure, I think the earthy oils would be really good. And immediately I think of vetiver, although I feel that's very Taurian as well. So very Venusian because of the sensuality of it. But it's very good for holding the container, which I feel that earth can do. So I'm going to say definitely vetiver because it keeps you grounded and focused. But then if we looked at another oil that would be extremely good for that Saturnian energy, would be rosemary. So putting the two together would be ideal because rosemary is very much also about the mind and it's air. But I feel rosemary and vetiver together may not smell fantastic. You could sweep it, but it would be really good for that synergy.
But let me bring in a little traditional astrology as well. When you say air, so Saturn traditionally also rules Aquarius, which is an air. So it would make
There you go. So, that's really interesting because I knew about Mars with Scorpio and Jupiter with Pisces. I did not, now I studied astrology 27 years ago. I did not know that Saturn originally ruled Aquarius. So that does make, yeah.
because those are
Yeah.
the winter months, right? When the Capricorn, Aquarius, well, in the northern hemisphere, they're the winter months, and it's cold and dry, and that's Saturn is cold and dry.
Yeah. And so that's another thing too, because a lot of people follow the Northern Hemisphere here, whereas I really work with our seasons as they are, because for me, even though I've got Northern Hemisphere roots, I feel more aligned working with the Southern Hemisphere wheel of the year. So sometimes it can be a little bit confusing for some people, especially with the moon, because with the moon being called different names like the beaver moon, the strawberry moon,
Right.
and all of this, because it relates to the seasons in the Northern
Yeah.
Hemisphere, it actually has no relevance to us. But that's another topic.
Yeah.
Which
I've always wondered about that Southern
yes,
Hemisphere people and astrology and how that, just how that.
yeah, and here's another tip about the moon. When we look at the crescent moon, we see it opposite to what each other it sees it. It won't be facing the same way, whichever one it is. It's the
Right.
opposite.
Wow. How
Just like your
cool.
water turns a different
Turns the
way,
other way.
the moon, it's the same. And
Crazy.
it's very interesting, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
so fascinating. And so, okay, so we got that with Saturn. Then we looked at Jupiter. And
Mhm.
Jupiter being, so bergamot is an oil because of the joyful, playful, optimistic aspect of it. And of course, there are other oils. So I'm just giving, a couple of examples here. But the other for fire as well, because I really do see it as a fire, even though it had traditionally water as well, with that fire and expansiveness, because it's like fire creates transformation. So again, and for me personally, Jupiter is so powerful. I feel it in my body. And so therefore I would put black pepper, but black pepper can also be an amazing Mars oil,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And even if we looked at like oils like frankincense, which is earth and fire, it's about releasing that which doesn't serve us in order to move forward. So that could even be Jupiter or Saturn.
Okay.
Because
Great.
that's expansiveness. We're letting go of what is holding us back, and that way we can move forward. So that's like, yeah, bring it on. But it's very aligned and abundant, frank and black pepper as well. When you look at the history of some of these oils, like the spices, they were worth more than gold and money, and they were used for
That's
trading.
right.
So, that
Mhm.
expansiveness again with spices for
Mhm.
Jupiter is very powerful. Even rose, like I could just go through a whole lot of stuff here. So we got to Jupiter. I know it's just like there's so much to share. So let's do I mean, I am a Venusian girl and I have a story. I've got a couple of stories about Venus that I love to share.
Mhm.
So can I go first, please?
Yeah, no, yeah, please.
Okay, so Venus, the goddess of, she's known as the goddess of love, beauty, abundance, prosperity, fertility, or slash birthing of ideas. But I was reading up on her years ago in some Hindu mythology where she was also known as the prostitute. And the prostitute, I want to bust the myth of the prostitute being the person that gives themselves away. And I told the story on a call earlier this evening. And I've even created a perfume, courtesan. So back in the 16th century, there was a very famous courtesan, and I've probably said this on my podcast before, but I just love this story. And I think it's very powerful because I studied archetypes, the first level of Carolyn Mace, which was incredible. But I have,
I think
brought
you
up,
and I have talked about, we've talked about this.
we
Do you remember?
have talked about this.
We both resonate with this person so much.
So, Patricia, we've covered a few planets on this chat, and now we're going to move into the sun and the moon. And I might let you take lead on the sun. I do love the sun, but I know that I've been talking a lot, so I'm gonna hand it over to you, and I'll start with the moon.
Okay, I love the moon.
Me too. We'll both have plenty to say on.
Yeah. I mean, you were doing oils, so I'll let you do that part because I not my area of expertise. So,
Sure.
but yeah, the moon's a bit, well, the sun and the moon both are the luminaries, right? They light
Mm-hmm.
up and the moon basically reflects the sun. And it represents reception, like receiving, the energy of receiving, right? And containing. And it has phases, as we all know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which are just amazing to use. I love using it with my business owner clients for planning and how to when are good times to market and we start a launch, times to take it easy, and going with the flow of the moon is always really a nice thing. The other thing, like, is what sign the moon is in and paying attention to that and how
The
you're
moon or the
feeling.
sun?
The moon. What did I say?
Oh, yeah, no, you
Both.
said the moon. Both. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking about
So
both.
because she's like in different, she moves pretty quickly through the signs, right? Like every few days. And it can affect our energy level sometimes or just our moods, right? And so
Mhm.
so sometimes it's nice to just take note where she is and how, what's happening for you. So you start getting a feel for how she actually affects you personally. I had
I
an astrology.
love, oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go
I had
ahead.
an astrology teacher that used to dress the color of, for like if moon was in Aries, she would wear red that day, or like she would kind of dress the color of the moon each day, which I thought was cool. Go
Oh, I
ahead.
love that.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun. Well, we can come back to the sun now that we've sort of on the moon. Like, I love the moon like you, and I follow her and do a lot of magic around the moon, especially it's pretty well known, new moon magic, which I love. I tend to do a lot more magic during the new moon up to full moon rather than the waning, although it definitely has its place. And even sometimes I tap into the dark moon. So the moon rules Cancer, and my moon is actually in Cancer. I've got
Mm.
strong
Oh.
water, so I feel deeply. Yeah, so I've got a moon in Cancer in the fifth house, and it's really, I love it. Well, of course, I love my chart. Who doesn't love their own chart? I would say.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
it's quite funny, isn't it, to say that? But I do. I
Uh-huh.
remember, just going off track as I do, when I very first started studying astrology, I really struggled with my generational, like my Pluto in Virgo.
Mm.
I just
Mhm.
couldn't get it. And it was probably because but it's my main, like it's my earth. And because I don't have that strong earth in my chart. However, I love Plutonian energy, and I've had a very major Pluto trends in my life, but here I go off track. I'm going to pull myself back into the moon. Yeah, the beautiful Luna. So for some of our audience may or may not know that in some cultures, the moon represents the masculine, the man. Hence the old saying, when I was growing up in New Zealand, the Maori culture, from my understanding, think of the moon as the masculine. And I grew up with my dad always saying, see the man in the moon, the face of the moon. And however, for me, and she's represented by the element of water, is very feminine. And our bodies as a woman often, function and flow with the moon, especially when you get a group of women together that have been together for a long time, when they bleed, etc. It's really powerful. And so, yeah, I love working with her. And so some beautiful oils for her. I've got more to say about her, and I'm sure you do too. So my favorite oil for the moon is jasmine. Jasmine is the mermaid of the ocean. And I always have this vision of the mermaid, who, by the way, she's the seductress archetype. And there are up to 13 different types of seductress archetypes to work with. But the mermaid is definitely one, the siren song we have heard about. So Jasmine is stunning, and I often have this vision of the mermaid. She's either frolicking in the ocean with all the beautiful ocean creatures, the whales, the octopi, the dolphins, the fish, the crabs, just like the Little Mermaid. I just thought about that. And or on this beautiful rock where the ocean is lapping up, or a tiny little island, and she's singing and playing an instrument, whether it be a lyre or you know, a harp or whatever instrument she may be playing. And then I always see her swim to shore, and she shapeshifts into a land woman, a goddess, as in two-legged. And, her tail is transformed. She's wearing this white, see-through, glistening, glittering gown, and it has a long train, which was her tail in the ocean, and she's just walking on the sand into the land. And I've always had that vision, and I often have visions with essential oils and how I relate them to planets, etc. So jasmine is absolutely the number one moon oil, and there are many others that have the water element in them. And there are certain essential oils that I call the big goddess oils, like rose, neroli, geranium, carnation, and jasmine, and ylang-ylang. And they have none of them are quite the same as jasmine, though, but they can all be used with the moon, and especially neroli. I mean, neroli is actually ruled by the sun in astrology. However, she's associated to the angelic realm. She is the celestial lioness. So I kind of see her dancing with the moon energy, but definitely jasmine is my big one.
Nice.
And with the moon, with her phases, like what I've noticed, and I'd be interested to hear your point of view on this, because when many years ago, I had a coven, in fact, 3 decades ago, and we used to always do full moon magic, and we always worked with it to conjure in what we desired, but we were also mindful of the timing, because the full moon lasts but a moment. However, on 2 to 3 days on each side of it, it is very powerful energy. But a lot of people these days tend to do more releasing and banishing magic, that I'm aware of. So it's really interesting. I do more conjuring in, like calling in, but I do it before the full moon hits.
Okay, I could see that. Yeah,
just before. It might be an hour before, it might be a couple of hours before.
It's still waxing at that point.
Yes.
And that's interesting. I've not thought of it that way, because that's really cool. Usually that last moment, like the 29th degree of a sign, right? It's that final powerful surge where the energy is the most.
Yes.
I love that idea. I have not done it. I have been releasing at the full moon, but I like what you're saying, Julie.
Thank you. Well, that's how we always used to work in our coven, because we were all aromatherapists. We had studied together, and that's how we came together. And we celebrated the wheel of the year and every full moon, and we always did magic to call things to us. So just, to give people that little bit of information about the moon, because if you do a releasing before the full moon has actually hit, it's the wrong time, but it is only but a moment, isn't it? So yeah. And to do releasing, of course, that is the most powerful time, just before and just after. And as I mentioned, 2 to 3 days on either side is when she's still in her very powerful energy. And she moves through the signs approximately every 2.5 days. And it's really funny when I've been on call with another friend of mine, another astrology friend of mine. And when we were going through COVID, we did a weekly astrology clubhouse call. And we used to laugh, because my personality would be shifting, especially during the middle of a call, if it went, from Pisces to Aries. like Aries, I go wild. I just suddenly change and get louder. And then Capricorn, I struggle, I struggle. I feel like I'm really weighted down. So probably because I'm so in tune with it. But do you notice things like that for yourself too?
Yeah, I think I don't always notice it, but I think if I notice it and then check, like, did the moon, like, did it change? I'm not always in a place where I'm checking it, I guess is what I'm trying. But yeah,
Oh, neither am I, but I know that
you
if I
look back
change
later.
the moon
Yeah.
has definitely shifted. Like, sometimes it's really subtle, and other times, like just Aries, it's just a big one for me. And I
Aries
can,
is such a transition, right? When you go from Pisces, which is all watery and we're all one and floaty and imagination, and then
yeah.
bam, this comes in. Yes, that's a definitely noticeable.
It is, it is. And I have this beautiful saying. It was my astrology teacher way back then, who, bless her, she's passed now, but she had this saying. I don't know if she got it from anyone, but I love it. And it's like Aries is like, do as I say, not as I do, and do it now. And I find that with the Aries moon, it's so funny, and it's just kind of like blah 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 blah, like I am literally on fire because I'm such a water person, that I feel that energy quite deeply. And of course, if the moon is whatever element the moon is in, I use that element in my magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I love, love, love the moon. And not all of the time, but when I lived on a big property, it was just magnificent. But I'm not anymore. But as soon as I see her coming up over those trees, and it's not the same, of course, because her cycle changes, I'm out there standing under there, and just arms open and just taking in those moonbeams, and they rain down on me. So I love it. Do you feel really connected with her crazy?
Do, and it comes also in a way. So I have had the invisibility issue, I'll call it, for a long time. Like, I can be in a class and they're calling out, attendance, and skip a name, like,
Whoa.
it just weird things. I can expect it almost, right? Like,
Are
weird
you
things.
creating it if you expect it?
Well, see, and that's part of it, that I feel like for a while it was very frustrating because, it was clear I was the common denominator of strange situations that, if I told you all of them, okay, that's bizarre, and I started realizing, okay, look, this could be a gift if I
Yes.
figure out, like, it's clearly me. So if I can control it, that would be really awesome, right? Then it's like having your own invisibility cloak.
Absolutely. Harry Potter came straight into mind then.
Yeah.
And how convenient. Like, yeah, I don't want to be seen, especially if you've robbed a bank or something, and then you go out and it's,
Right.
I'm invisible. No, I'm not encouraging anybody to rob a bank. It just couldn't, that just came out. But you know what I mean?
I remember one of my business coaches at the time had told me, and I'll have to find this poem she actually told me about the moon. She told me, you need to be the moon. Like, rather than looking at it like, oh, this is a problem, because that's what I used to say. I used to say, if there's more than one person in the room, they're going to take the role of the sun, and I'm going to be the moon hidden in the shadow. Like, it just.
Ah.
And she said, great, be the moon, because the moon has its own power, right? And she sent me this poem, which the gist of it was, the wind kept blowing because the moon was annoying it, and so the wind thought, if I can get rid of this thing, and so it would blow. Do you know this poem?
No,
It
but I
would
was just blowing into
blow,
the
and then,
microphone.
the moon would get smaller, and so the wind's like, oh, see, it's working, and so it kept blowing, like, I'm going to get rid of it, and then of course the moon started getting bigger again, and the
Yeah.
wind's like, it's happening, and the bottom, like, the last line was something along the lines of, the moon didn't even know the wind existed. Like it was,
I love-
was
yeah,
just
I love it.
doing its thing, and the wind was all bent out of shape because of what the moon was doing. And so she just kept telling me, be the moon, be the moon, and so I started taking on that kind of mantle of be the moon, which is why I think I have such like an amazing relationship with it, and have really taken it to heart.
I
And
love
yeah,
that.
being in control, like, being aware of my energy, and when I want to be more visible and when I don't want to be more visible, and using that as a superpower, right?
That is powerful. That is very powerful. And I think I might play with that myself. I mean, I remember as
Mhm.
a kid, I always felt invisible. Um, but that's really interesting. But there's no hiding me now. I'm very different to what I was when I was a child, not in my own home, but out in public. So I believe them very powerful. I love that story. I think that's fabulous. And so that may be, I would love to know if our audience relates to that, because who knows? That's very, I think that's very powerful, because the moon herself is powerful, and she goes by a couple of names like Selene, the goddess Selene, and Luna.
Mhm.
And we know that this is for our audience as well, as astrology used to be a part of the Hippocratic Oath, and then it was taken out. And so often when you study the moon phases, you will see when it is a good time to have an operation and when it is not, because we bleed more. So obviously on a full moon, if you can avoid having a surgical procedure, especially, a big one, then try to do it, the waning or new moon phase, because you're less
Mhm.
likely to bleed as much. And even though there are some scientists that are saying that there's no proof, I think we only have to look at women and their cycle and how that works is enough proof. And then we're made up mostly of water. So why would we not have our emotion feelings fluctuate as the ocean does, the ebb and flow of the tide? So it's all good food for thought. And yeah, I love working with the moon. I can't wait. I know that one day I want to be in a place where I used to love going moon bathing when I lived in the country. I actually did go out naked sometimes and stand under the moon. And the first time I did it was only for a few minutes, because I did feel a bit self-conscious on a 40-acre property, nobody could see. And and then, I came inside and it was a very warm, balmy night, and not so good. So I went back out again, and just for a few minutes, and came in. And then I ended up going out a third time, and I was so energized and it felt so good. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do this more often. But hence now I'm very exposed where I live, so I can't. It's really
I love that. I've
disappointing.
never been able to do that because I've never been in a, situation where I'm not going to be seen by somebody. So,
Yeah, exactly. So it is a bit tricky, but when you live on a large property, it's pretty cool. And honestly, the feeling was amazing.
Mm.
So that was a bit of fun. So do check in with the moon. I always recommend that we follow the moon, because she has a very potent influence on us. And we know, but we don't know.
Mhm.
You know. Um, so lastly, we've got the sun. And as you mentioned at the beginning, the sun, got that, but it keeps coming out. So if I do a long pause, it's because I'm trying to hold myself back from the so and the and the no,
Yeah,
I was
I
doing
have.
really well at one point, but I seem to have slipped. The sun. I had told myself back then, the sun. For me, the sun is our life force. It is a she in some cultures. I think of the sun as the masculine, but there is a goddess that I love to work with called Amaterasu, and she is the Japanese sun goddess, and I love her story. And she is actually a counterpart of Ishtar. the goddess of the heavens, the queen of the heavens. So it's really lovely when you look at stories, the mythology of these goddesses, and if you work with gods, and then you bring them into your daily life and your magic and astrology, etc. I love it. I love bringing it all in together. So our birthdays are our sun sign, our star sign, some people think of them. And people tend to think that this is the major sign in your chart. And it may be for some people. It all depends on the placings in the blueprint. For me, I always see the sun as just a piece of our chart. And, our rising sign is how we start off in life. Our sun sign is our earthly journey into mastering that sign. This is how I see it. And that can be at any age, at the same age for everybody. And our nodes, our north node, I know I'm going off here, but is our soul path in this plane. So I have personally found sometimes I don't often pick somebody's sun sign, but I will pick up on other parts of their chart that are really standing out for me. Do you experience that too?
Yeah. So in traditional astrology, the rising sign is actually the gateway to the chart. So that's where I always start. And then I follow the path, right? So I look at, okay, what's the ruler of the rising? What's it doing? It might have some relationship to the sun. It might not. Sometimes, like you said, the sun doesn't even come in picture, at least not really powerful, right? Yeah. Which I think is why, so I look at the rising sign just to kind of echo like what you were talking about. I think we look at things a little differently just because we're a different style of astrologer. And to me, it's the driver of, that's what the Hellenistic Greeks would call it. The chart is the ship of your life that's carrying you through life. And the rising sign is the helm of the ship. And the planet that rules that sign is the helmsman driving your life. So it's the driver, the motivator. It's always underlying, like maybe decisions that you make or choices you go, where you go in life. That is always resonating. But the sun I look at as like, yes, like you said, like it's, there's so many other things in the chart that the sun isn't always the most prominent in someone, which is why different Taurus people could look very different, right? And act very differently.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so it just all depends on all the other things going on. But the sun is, I think one reason why it does feel it is kind of important is the fact that it's, like you said, it's the fuel. Like that's how I look at it, the fuel. It can be like your mission. Like what are you here to actually do? And the one of the main keywords that I use with the sun is choice, choosing. Whenever the sun comes in some kind of a predictive chart, it's usually about making a choice. And if you think about that, it's our choices that kind of make us who we are, that kind of create that, like the ego, right?
Yes.
Of who we are. And so that's the sun. It's more that kind of ego-driven portion of ourselves. And I don't necessarily mean that. I know ego gets a bad rap, but I was
going to say something about the ego, because the ego is a necessary part of ourselves. It's how we use our ego, because me not being able to hold myself back. I saw a post on Facebook not that long ago, and it was this big post like, we must, it's like our ego must die. We must not have an ego. And I'm going, holy fuck, no, we need. So I'm very diplomatic. I've got all of that Libra that I've learned to use diplomatically. And I just said, no, our ego is actually a very necessary part of our being. It's how it is. It is the same as, money is the root of all evil, but it's actually not. It's the people that are using the money.
Right.
The ways
it's the choices. People
about
make
the choices. So that's I agree. And of course it rules Leo. And Leos have this beautiful, or if somebody's got a strong placement with Leo, they have this vibrant, you know,
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
want to be seen, and they're pleasure seekers like
Mm-hmm.
Taurus, but they do want to be seen, whereas Taurus is more like that sensual, let's hop into bed or snuggle up on the couch with a fire and a glass of red wine and eat beautiful food. And
Exactly. Yeah. I always compare, like, because Aries is also about the,
Mhm.
like sometimes that fire energy, right? Like, so Aries is the, doing it my way. I'm going to be the rebel. I'm separate, and it's about kind of this identity of, it's the, this is me and I'm an individual, right? I
Mhm.
am. And
Mhm.
then Leo is kind of like, people can think, okay, well, so is Leo. It's about like, look at me, but it's Leo needs an audience, right? Like Aries doesn't care. It's going,
Yeah, Aries doesn't give a
I'm gonna
shit.
care if you come along. But Leo's like, look, I'm doing this. This is me. I'm self-expressing. I think that's a big word for Leo, self-expression, right? Like,
Oh, yes.
me, and I'm going to express it. And then now I want, what do you think about that? Tell me, like, give me
Yeah.
some of, yeah. So,
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of oils that can be used to work with the sun as well. And one of the big ones, like I mentioned earlier, that neroli is ruled by the sun, and it's definitely not an Aryan oil. And neroli, being so angelic, but I think she is more than Sag um, in that fire. I sort of have like Aries, Leo, Sag as in high, middle, and low fire energy when I'm working with essential oils and the element and magic. And I see Neroli as sitting in the middle there.
mhm,
And because she is associated to the angelic realm, and I always think of Leo as being the celestial lion or lioness
mhm,
of the heavens. So I can see the relation there with Neroli and this Leo and the sun. But a beautiful and powerful oil for the sun is grapefruit. And when you think all of the citrus are ruled by
mhm,
the sun, lemon has a lot of water in it. But mandarin, orange,
mhm,
yuzu, mei chang. Well, the mei chang's not a citrus plant, but it has a citrusy smell. But let's just say the citrus fruits. They're very much like when you look at the fruit themselves, they're either balls of yellow or orange, and they are all about joy and happiness. And when we think of the sun, being that fuel or the life force, and there is our life force brings us joy and happiness. I mean, if we think about standing underneath the sun, especially when it's been raining, like we've had so much rain, and the sun comes out and you immediately just go, oh, it feels so good, and you smile and feel the energy starting to rise.
yeah.
So
Well,
again, sorry.
sorry. It's literally the life giver, right? Like without
Yes.
nothing happens. So yeah.
That's right. We need the sun for growth on many levels, our emotional, our physical, our plants, our earth, everything. So I'm going to say if you want to choose an essential oil, go with grapefruit. Grapefruit has the most beautiful, subtle aroma. It is actually an oil, its keywords are boldness, courage,
Ooh.
and it is a light bringer. It brings in the light and
And
life
all of the
force.
words could be used to describe the sun as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's like, and even when I talk about the oils, I feel my, body and face start to react because I've been working with them for so long. So you've got some nice ideas there, people, for this great chat. And I know I say this a lot with my guests, but I really want to have Patricia back if she'll come back. And we
Up
can
to.
do other chats, like, this was just more of a free flow, but perhaps we can, do a series and niche down. And we've decided that we're going to do a video, a Venusian video for YouTube.
Yeah.
Which will be fun. So stay tuned. Keep following us. The show notes and information will be posted below for you to be able to connect in with Patricia all the way over there from me in Portugal. I just keep thinking, God, I'd love to be there right now. Maybe not if it's
If it
too
makes you
cold.
feel better, it's cold and rainy right now. So
No, I'm quite happy to be here then right now because we've had enough rain. And yeah, look, it's great because, as you said, we do our astrology a bit differently, but it all dances together, and that's the beauty. There's no right and there's no wrong. It just all, and it's what feels right for the receiver as well. But we can have fun, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So
it.
thank you so much for being with me on this chat. We've had a few challenges too with internet. You may notice that there's a glitches. There's a few glitches, but that's okay. We're real and raw conversations. We're not in a radio station. And that's what I love about this, because I can swear like a trooper and it's my show, so I don't care if you don't like it. I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm so naughty. That could be my Aries South Node. It could be my Scorpio. It's so funny. All right. So I trust you enjoyed this podcast, and we will be back soon. And I'm looking forward to having Patricia. I used to know a Colombian woman called Patricia. So sometimes I say both. Do you have any last words that you would like to share?
I think, honestly, it's the whole astrological magic that we've been kind of covering. I'll just say, don't feel overwhelmed, because you can go down a whole rabbit hole with things to use and building your altar, and that's all fun, but don't let it stop you. Like, you can literally keep it so simple with a candle, right? Like,
Absolutely. A glass of water.
yeah. And pick the day that is that planet's day that you want to work magic with, light a candle, and you're off to the races. So yeah. So just start, I guess, is what I would say.
That's really, really good advice. Because, as we know, there are many pathways, many layers. It's huge. So work with what's comfortable with you, and just take that first step. And it's fun. So this is Julie signing off, and
Patricia in Portugal signing off.
I love that we can do this. So thank you. And we will be back for another episode. Thank you for joining us on the enchanting journey through the realms of magic, mystique, and self-discovery. I hope you enjoyed our time together on the Rich Witch podcast, where we delve into the depths of witchcraft, astrology, and the unapologetic rise of women. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And as we wrap up, I encourage you to carry the wisdom and magic we've shared into your own life. Embrace the power within you and revel in the beauty of your own unique journey. Stay tuned for more magic, and in the meantime, stay curious and know your magic is a gift to the world. Blessed be, beautiful ones, and remember, the magic is always within you. This is Julie Nelson, signing off.